From Fox 8 Sports, this is the Overtime Podcast.
From the Fox 8 studios in New Orleans, this is the Fox 8 Overtime Podcast. I am your host, Sean Fazan, riding shotgun as he does each and every podcast. This is Andre Johnson.
Junior.
Do not forget the Junior. It's very important to remember the JR at the end of the name. Before we get into today's content, be sure to like, share, rate, and review. If you are watching us on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, get the bell notification for when we drop that fire content. And today, it is Wednesday. By the way, hello to the Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network. Thank you for finding us here. We are glad you have found us. We're here a lot, so please keep tuning in. As for today, it's Fire Content Edition. It's Wednesday, the busiest day of the week outside of Sunday in the NFL, because that's when the week starts. That's when practices get going for the upcoming opponent. And normally, the big-time storyline for this week would be the Saints playing the Commanders. Marshawn Lattimore is coming back. They're facing Jaden Daniels. And that would be what we would be talking about on a podcast like today. But the chances of us getting to that today are slim and none because the Saints, not per usual, but more often than they would like, are dealing with some quarterback issues. And, of course, that brought up quarterback questions, as in, who is going to start on Sunday? But before that, how are you feeling on this hump day?
I'm feeling good, Sean. You know, there has been no shortage of content in the sports world for us today.
It's been a busy month, huh?
Yeah, you mentioned all the Saints stuff. High school state championships start tomorrow. About a couple hours ago, Garrett Nussmeier announced he's staying at LSU
Smart
for
decision.
another year for him. Darian Mensah, Tulane's quarterback, is going to Duke now. So it's a very busy day in the Louisiana sports world.
It's a busy stretch. December's always like that. There's so much happening at the end of the year.
And I didn't even mention the Pelicans.
Exactly. Just because of the sports calendar, they all kind of merge over this stretch of time here. So, yeah, good. You're doing good. We've stayed busy. There's no doubt about that. I feel like I've been running around like crazy for the last couple of hours. But we're here settling in and talking about this pod today. Big picture, we have to go with this. It's Wednesday. The Saints are practicing, and the public messaging towards us is they still have not made the call between Jake Haener or Spencer Rattler. And that is where I wanted to go with the big picture today. And then when we get to our kind of, not our secondary topic, but our next topic, you'll understand why after we give us what happened here today.
Yeah, you know, usually on a Wednesday, that's the day that the Saints allow us to talk to the starting quarterback. It's been Derek Carr the last 2 seasons, but today we did not speak to Derek Carr, who, by the way, has not officially been ruled out for Sunday's game against the Commanders. But when you talk to Darren Rizzi, he says when it comes to who will suit up under center, right now the Saints don't know. They're not sure if it'll be Carr, Haener, Rattler, but you were there at practice today, Sean. Do you believe it?
All right. Do I believe it? All right. Well, when the Saints roll with Spencer Rattler back in week 6 against, who are they playing? Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
I believe it was that Wednesday press conference. We all went out to practice that day, and I got to be honest, based off of what I saw at practice that day, I would have got no inclination of whether or not it was Haener or Rattler, what we were allowed to see in that small window. And then right out of the gate, Dennis Allen comes out and boldly proclaims and proudly states, we are going with Spencer Rattler to start at quarterback for the Saints. To open his press conference, there was no question asked at that point. He just straight up said it. I was kind of hoping for that same proclamation today, whether it was Jake Haener or Spencer Rattler, because Darren Rizzi is an upfront and open guy. But Darren Rizzi decided to keep their plans close, and he did not reveal who the starter will be. He said they haven't made the call yet. Both guys receive first team reps at practice today, and they'll make a decision later this week. So I'm going to go ahead and say this. I understand what Rizzi's doing here, but I'm not sure I totally believe it. Later in the press conference, Rizzi was asked if him not knowing yet was more of them still not being sure of who gives them the better option, or perhaps keeping the Commanders in the dark about who to prepare for, Carr, Haener, or Rattler. His response was, Yes. Just yes. That was it. Even joke, that was the shortest answer he's ever given. So I'm just going to say, kind of feels like we're in the midst of a little bit of gamesmanship here, and I am not mad at it one bit. Who do the Commanders have to prepare for? Is it Haener? Is it Rattler? And they even left the door open for Derek Carr, as we mentioned, said he isn't going on IR, still in concussion protocol, but did reveal he would have to go through at least some form of a walkthrough to even have the chance to play on Sunday. So I believe they know, or they're pretty sure, just haven't said it yet, who they want to go with. I just find it hard to believe that they're going to keep doing the split practice first team reps all week. It just doesn't happen in the NFL. There's too many subtleties. There's too many things you got to get the main guy ready for to split reps. And there's so many plays you have to practice to split reps. And I believe, now this is my opinion, I am not stating this as fact, but I believe Haener is the guy if Carr can't go. I think it's Haener if Carr can't go. Like I said, I was at practice today, and it's a little bit different now what we're able to see versus what we used to be able to see. And they're just some little things. If you haven't been out there enough, you probably wouldn't even notice it. But it just leads me to believe there are a couple little subtle things that I saw out there at practice today that leads me to believe that Haener would be the guy. It's certainly not a guarantee because there are a lot of things that happen after we leave that we are not privy to and we cannot see, and who knows what happens behind closed doors, and that's why we can't be there the whole time because they want to keep certain things a secret. Most importantly, who's starting at quarterback, because I believe they kind of know, and I believe the arrow is pointing in Haener's direction. It's not the craziest idea in the world, especially when you're 5-8 and you absolutely need to have a victory to keep your opposition's coaches in the dark on who to prepare for it. But I still think, while they haven't announced it, I think they know. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I also think it's a little bit of gamesmanship when it comes to Darren Rizzi, because if you're the Commanders, how you would prepare for Spencer Rattler, he's not Lamar Jackson, but he is a little bit more mobile compared to how you would prepare for Jake Haener, who would probably prefer to stay in the pocket. It's two different defensive game plans. So if I'm Darren Rizzi, I'm not trying to tip my hat and let you know, oh, it's Rattler, prep for him. Oh, it's Haener, prep for him. So, yeah, I want to keep the Commanders guessing, but also I think it's a little bit of desperation because without a doubt, Darren Rizzi doesn't want to have to start Jake Haener or Spencer Rattler if it comes down to it. He's trying to hold out for Derek Carr. And when it comes to the concussion protocol, obviously you can't really take too many risks. And even if he were to clear it, say, late Friday, is he going to have enough time to go through the steps that the team would want him to go through to get ready for Sunday? And even if he clears concussion protocol, you still got the hand injury. And I know it's his offhand, but you know, how that could affect the quarterback may be getting a little
Which one concerns you more, the hand or the concussion?
Honestly, the hand.
Me too. Like that was what worries me more. I understand concussion. It's been, 2 or 3 he's had since he's been here, and that's certainly very scary. But he was doing a function at a community event on Tuesday. It looked like there were pictures of him. To me, the hand thing would be the most restrictive thing, or the thing that would hold them back the most, right?
Yeah, I mean, when you recover from a concussion, especially once they let you out of that concussion protocol, I mean, you're clear to play. But when it comes to that hand, when you fall, if you can't really, can you break your fall with that hand?
Yeah.
Does it hurt every time you fall? When it comes to, obviously quarterbacks like to pat the ball, and everything. Does that affect the left hand? I'm curious how hurt it is and how much you can really do with it. Obviously, it's not as severe as the hip injury that he had earlier this year, to where you can't really turn your body and create that momentum and that torque. But, I mean, I don't think that the left hand injury is getting as much attention as maybe it should be getting.
And that, what's wild is that it seems obvious to me. It seems that's the thing that would hold him back the most, because once you clear concussion protocols, you can play. You're free to go. But, some people, I was on a radio show, they asked me, you think it's more of a pain tolerance thing? I said, I don't look, there's a lot of advances in modern medicine right now. You might be able to put something on there or maybe, take something that could help at least settle the pain for a 3-hour window to play a game. To me, it's a functionality thing. Do you have this big glove or wrap or whatever on your left hand, and can you be functional with that on your hand? Because this is an offense where you got to hand the ball off, you use the left hand to hand the ball off, and more importantly, when you don't hand the ball off, you still got to have the left hand available, because if you all of a sudden try to do a fake handoff like this, it's pretty clear tell what's happening with on that play, and this is obviously a play-action offense. So, to me, the hand would be the thing that would hold them back more than the concussion.
Absolutely, but I do agree with your big point, which is if Carr can't go, I think Jake Haener's the guy. I mean, you talk about the definition of insanity, trying the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. We tried the Spencer Rattler thing out. He played against the Bucs. The Saints lost by a lot. He played against the Broncos. Saints lost by a lot. You play him against the Chargers. The Saints still lose by a lot. But against the Chargers, Jake Haener did come in a little midway through the third quarter, and he looked pretty impressive. And both of us have kind of gone back to watch that game. What were your takeaways from Jake Haener?
And I'm glad we were going to segue into this, because I think it's important, because, it was a long time ago, and we live in this week-to-week existence. And you go. I mean, the Chargers game. I remember being out in L.A. It really feels like a long time ago, and I wanted to go back and watch, because I know he got in that game. I wanted to remember how long he was in. Was it about a quarter and a half, something like that? About midway through the third quarter, maybe slightly. Like less than that.
I think Rattler got the first 2 possessions or so, and then Haener came in. And
so I wanted to go back and look. I mean, it's the biggest sample size we have of Jake Haener in a professional NFL regular season football game, because I really didn't recall anything just off the top of my head that really stood out, because at that point, the game, you're out there, you're covering the game, you understand the storyline. The game was I don't say it was out of reach. It was a 2-score game. And the offense had been somewhat anemic. So I'd kind of I feel bad saying it, but I kind of forgot that he really did some nice things. You go back and you watch. He was 9 of 17, 122 yards. He was sacked twice. There were 2 or 3 big drops in the game. He led them in 4 drives. He led them to a field goal, a punt, a missed field goal, and then that final drive, he drove them all the way down inside the 5-yard line. They didn't score on the final play of the game when time ran out. So I'm going back and watching it, just the flow from the network standpoint. Then I go back and watch the All-22, and what really jumps out, just the main theme. If you just want to, Jake Haener is this. He is a very quick decision maker. He computes things very fast when he gets the ball in his hand. And this is a situation where he got in the game. It's a quarter and a half left of the game. He's inserted into the game, and because they're behind by so much, they can't really run the ball at that point. I think they ran the ball twice in traditional runs. He had a couple of scrambles on his own. So he really was in I got to throw the ball type situation. Now, you could say that's an advantage, because it could help him just kind of, it could force certain coverages, and he just kind of get into rhythm faster. But you could also say the Chargers only had to defend one thing, and that's the pass. But I think he computes things very quickly, and he got a lot of opportunities to throw the football. And the Chargers, what probably doesn't get recognized a lot, because it was that late in the game, it was a late insert at quarterback, was how much the Chargers threw at him from a coverage mixing standpoint, from a cover 2, cover 3, a lot of cover 4, a lot of 2-man. I know I'm getting X's and O's on you, but if you understand what I'm saying, you get that's a lot to throw at a young quarterback. There was blitzing, there was zone blitzing, especially on the last drive that he played. I counted 2 bad decisions where he just either missed an open guy, or he kind of he felt pressure that wasn't there, and he kind of back spun out into a sack. But most of the time, for a guy coming in cold like that, I thought he made the correct call, made the correct decision. Probably has a little bit stronger arm than he gets credit for. He doesn't have a cannon by any means, and he's certainly not perfect there, because there was a deep ball to Chris Olave that he missed, but it was the right decision. Again, decision making is good, but he missed them long, and then his best play comes on the final drive. It's 4th and long. He gets an all-out blitz. It's cover 0. Again, if you understand X's and O's, what cover 0 means, there's no safety, and he's got to hang in an extra count, step up, kind of feel the pressure at his face and at his feet, and throws a deep post above Means with like 40 yards. Now, it's the correct decision, and they made the completion, but where you see The physical deficiency was it was a little underthrown, even though it was a good throw. If he leads him, it's a touchdown, but he catches it, and it's a 40-yard gain, so it's a great play. It's a great decision. Just not quite the quote-unquote arm talent to get it there, but you got to like a guy that understands what he sees and understands how to make decisions quickly, which is something you don't necessarily see from a second-year player. I might have called him a rookie earlier. He's obviously not a rookie. But all in all, when I watched it over again, on Monday, I felt like pretty definitively when we were talking about it, like kind of in our pre-pod meeting, if you will, I was like, I think it's pretty obvious. This is Jake Haener. I think you got to give him an opportunity. And that was before going back and watching it. Then going back and watching it, I'm more convinced now than ever that he should be the guy. I just think, if nothing else, you want a guy that's going to make decisions quickly and decisive, as opposed to, there was a couple moments with Spencer Rattler where he looked like a rookie because he was indecisive. And I just think Jake Haener is a guy that's going to make quick decisions, and it may not always be the right decision, but I can remember the great Greg Williams once said, the defensive coordinator here, he said, I don't mind mistakes as long as they're fast mistakes. You make the decision, doesn't mind, make the decision quickly and decisively. So after that small but significant sample size in Week 8 against the Chargers, I feel more confident in Jake Haener now to go out. I'm not saying they're going to win. In fact, I'm still going to predict them to lose. I'm just going to go out and say that right now. But I can understand why, if you're the coaches, you look at that and you say, you know what? He gives us the best chance to be competitive and win this game.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, the moment wasn't too big for Jake Haener.
Great point.
It wasn't a situation where he was stepping into a situation where it's like, oh, you're down 30, midway through the fourth quarter, you're just out there to get some work. Like, he stepped in, and it was a 2-possession ball game. Mm-hmm. Obviously, he didn't lead them back to get the win, but he played a pretty good game. I mean, if you look at the throws he made to Jawan Johnson over the middle, it was a very small window on that pass, and Jake Haener fitted in low where only Jawan Johnson can get to it and avoid a big hit, which quarterbacks have been criticized for doing.
And that was the first time he saw that coverage on that play. It was that 2-man coverage. Anyway, continue.
Exactly. And then he, like you mentioned, the deep pass to Bub Means, who, by the way, returned to practice this week. And we talked about it with Spencer Rattler in regards to Bub Means. Spencer Rattler kind of latched on to Bub Means as his, quote, wide receiver one. Because when it comes to training camp and mini camp, Spencer Rattler worked with Bub Means more than he worked with Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed. Same thing with Jake Haener. Jake Haener worked with Bub Means a lot more than he worked with those other guys too. So Bub Means may be coming back, could help Haener as well. But just when you look at the overall sense of the game, the moment never seemed too big for Haener. He never seemed flustered, even when they blitzed him, which was another major issue with Rattler when they started to blitz him and he really didn't know what to do. He wasn't sliding to protection. He was trying to spin out and run away from it, and he would run into a sack. Haener, in a way, him not being as mobile as Rattler helps him because he's not reliant on that mobility. If that pressure comes, more times than not, he knows he either has to get that ball out of bounds or find a quick receiver, find his check down. And that's kind of what he did against the Chargers. He didn't make, a million throws down the field. A lot of his throws were check down to Shaheed, a quick throw to Taysom. And then when he had to go deep, when they all-out blitzed him on 4th and 11, he made the deep pass to Bud Means. Overall, he was impressive. And if I'm a coaching staff, I want to see more.
Exactly.
And I don't think Jake Haener is winning you the game against the Commanders, but this is a young guy who you invested a 4th-round pick? A 4th-round pick into last year, and even if Clint Kubiak wasn't on the staff when that pick was made, this is a young quarterback who has really been getting mentored by Derek Carr because they went to the same college.
Yeah, that's right.
Even before they were teammates together in New Orleans, Jake Haener has been receiving a lot of advice and game from Derek Carr. So I want to see what it looks like when he gets a full week of practice, the majority of the reps with the ones, and comes out and plays in the game.
There are a couple things though, just to tack on to what you said there. I like he is going to be a guy that goes through his reads. He's not going to drop his eyes and run at first pressure, but he does have a natural ability to climb up and through and find space, and he's not going to run it for 60, but he can give you 8, 9, 10, 12 yards if the space is there. He did it a couple times. It wasn't that big of it was like a couple 3 or 4 yard runs. And I think, obviously, in that exact situation, Spencer Rattler's probably, a 1/10 of a second faster. I don't know what they were clocked at in the 40, and maybe that's where you see a little bit of the physical difference. But there's another play where it's again, X's and O's. It's a deep out route to Chris Olave, and they're in this cover 4 zone, the Chargers, but the Chargers make a mistake, and 2 guys jump the underneath route. Therefore, the boundary is open on the deep out. Good quarterbacks make defenses pay when they make a mistake, and he read the mistake right away and hit the deep out, which is, if you want to talk about arm strength, that's the throw everybody talks about, that deep out and that deep comeback from the opposite hash. Can he make that throw? And the throw was made. Nice catch by Olave. We got about an extra 15, 20 yards after the catch. And, look, he won't have Chris Olave. We understand that. But, again, when I go back to computing what he sees, kind of dissecting the data right in front of him, what the defense is doing, and that ability to process that very quickly and make the correct decision. May not have all the physical tools that everyone – he may not have the arm as Carr or the mobility as Rattler, but he's got a good enough arm and a good enough mobility, and I think he's got a good football IQ to be successful in a short window. And, look, that's also important to point out. This is going to be a short window of time if he gets this opportunity, whether it's this week plus next week, or whatever the case may be. So all that to say, when you give me those 2 guys right here, right now, again, I understood back in week 6 why he went with Rattler. I think it's time to turn the ball over to Jake Haener.
Yeah, and one thing you mentioned his ability to climb the pocket and really find space and windows, not to run, but to make the throws. And I think you can attribute that to him being a smaller quarterback.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, when you've listened to Drew Brees talk a lot in the past, Drew Brees, another guy who's considered a smaller quarterback, a lot of times they can't even see over the offensive lineman. So, Drew Brees even said there are times where I've thrown a pass where I didn't even see my receiver. I just knew he was there. Or you've got to really shift and slide to find windows and find cracks to make those throws. And Jake Haener, he's been small his whole life. He's kind of mastered that, and that's what got him to the NFL. He's going to need that skill if he, wants to have any chance of pulling a massive upset against the Commanders. And by the way, if you are able to win that game as Jake Haener, like if you're able to pull off that upset, if you're Jake Haener, what would that? Obviously, I'm not saying that would make Jake Haener the franchise quarterback in New Orleans, but that would do a lot for a young quarterback in his future, and that would do a lot for an interim head coach who wants to be a full-time head coach, whether it's in New Orleans or elsewhere.
And let's be honest, like, if you're Izzy, I could do exactly what Dennis Allen did and roll with Rattler, or I can make a different decision. And if that different decision turns out to have a better result when it comes to quarterback play, again, that helps Rizzy. We were kind of talking out at Saints camp today, just a couple of the media people out there, and we were in the locker room, and it was lively like usual. And it's kind of what we all boiled down to. It was, we kind of made this point last Monday. It's like this idea of, well, let's see what the organization has in the future, and let's get ready for the future. It just doesn't hold water right now because Rizzy may not be around for that future. He's got to win. And I think Rattler brought a little excitement, but I think Haener brings a little bit of practicality, and I think that's what this team probably needs in this moment right now. Look, they take a loss. We know the season's over, and the season's probably over now when you look at their playoff chances. But you keep winning, keep giving yourself a chance, especially if you were able to go out, choose a different quarterback, and that quarterback kind of proves you right. You can that can go a long way in, quote unquote, the coaching instincts of a guy like Darren Rizzi.
And it's worth mentioning the Commanders, I believe it was on Thanksgiving, they lost to the Cowboys and their backup quarterback.
That's true.
So it's not like the Commanders they're a good team. They're probably going to be in the playoffs. Jaden Daniels making a very strong case to be Offensive Rookie of the Year. But the Commanders are not bulletproof. They lost to Cooper Rush.
They did.
And the Dallas Cowboys. A Dallas Cowboys team that this Saints team ran over 44-19 earlier this season. They lost to them and their backup quarterback. So even with Jake Haener coming out, if he's able to play well and pull off an upset, hey, who knows, what'll happen in that situation. If you're Haener, if you're Rizzi, if you're the organization, it's going to be at home, so the fans are going to be really into it. But one obstacle that he's going to have that the Cowboys didn't have to deal with, Marshawn Lattimore. He practiced in full today. He is expected to be back in the Superdome against the Saints on Sunday.
Yeah, he's going to play, and that's going to be another storyline. And so much has happened, since last game, before this game, from the quarterback standpoint. I hadn't even gotten to that yet. because I was going, Saints quarterback situation, obviously Jaden Daniels, but Lattimore coming back is a big deal. We should also add, we're not saying the Saints are going with Jake Haener. We're saying we think they should go with Jake Haener based off of what objectively we watched when it came to watching the games over and the tape and that sort of thing. And what we believe gives the Saints the best chance to win. We could come back Friday and be like, "Yep, we were wrong. They're going with Spencer Rattler," but we'll find out in the coming days. But the Commanders, Jaden's playing great. Lattimore is going to be motivated for this one. There's always been a question about whether or not at times Marshawn was completely motivated. He got bored a little bit. He ain't going to be bored in this game. He's going to be ready to play. There's no doubt about that. This team traded him away, and the first game he plays, because he's been injured, I guess the hamstring injury was real. The first game he plays against his former team.
Yeah, and there's no Chris Olave to shut down.
Right.
There's no Rashid Shaheed to shut down. Ironically, it might help that, if Olave was there, Shaheed was there would be a lot of trash talk. It would be very personal, I'm sure, between Marshawn Lattimore and them. Obviously, they were his brothers, they were his teammates, but the competitor in him, I'm sure, would want to show those guys up. They're not there. The guys who are going to be starting at receiver are guys that Marshawn Lattimore really didn't even get to play with. I don't remember if he overlapped with Marquez Valdes-Scantling or Dante Pettis or any of those guys, but that either way, I wouldn't throw his direction very often.
No, and so if you're Haener or Rattler or Carr, just understand. Real quick, very short on time. Noah Brown did not practice. Zach Ertz didn't practice. It looked like it was a rest day for him. That's a couple of big names. Everyone else was full participation. DeMarco Jackson, Derek Carr, Alvin Kamara had an illness. He should be back later in the week. Before we close out here, since we're talking about quarterbacks, I'm just going to say shout out to Garrett Nussmeier. You made the correct call. Coming back to LSU for a 5th year. I'm excited for the Nuss Bus in 2025. We don't normally get a little bit of LSU in there, but I'm going to throw that out there for the audience. I know y'all are very excited about it. Real quick, anything before we go?
They needed him to come back.
They
Since
do.
you lost Bryce Underwood to Michigan, I don't know who would have been QB1 next year in Baton Rouge if Nussmeier didn't come back. So good decision. Come back, work on your draft stock, and maybe get picked in the first round next year.
And look, I'm old school, but starting and stopping in the same school your entire college eligibility is really cool nowadays. All right, for Andre Johnson Jr., I'm Sean Fazan. We'll catch you guys next time on Overtime.